Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with the Hunters. I am Martino Picariello alongside
Nick Giganti
and our guest,
Sam Akif.
We are all on the Hunters commercial team here in the city of Philadelphia, and we have been really looking forward to this episode for a long time. Sam is a close friend of mine personally. I know Nick, and then of course he's one of the silent killer. And he's also just been moving a lot of volume in terms of commercial real estate in these past probably 3-4 years. Would you say you really picked up the commercial game?
I'd say about 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Two years, give or take. I've been working on it for probably 4 years, but the last 2 years is when it really started to pick up.
What was that? What was that transition like when it all kind of like picked up in those?
It was a little tough, to be honest, because I had worked with investors on the residential side, and a lot of them wanted to graduate into bigger buildings. But so it kind of worked out perfectly for me. But it just took time because as a lot of these investors built a portfolio, then I would help them sell off some of their larger pieces, and then as I built relationships with them, I started to get connected with, some of the other industrial players in the city, and it all just worked out. But it took a lot of time.
Yeah, and Nick, you can attest to this. It takes a lot of trust to work with these industrial and commercial investors.
Yeah, and I would say that's one thing I commend Sam for is his ability to let people put their trust in you. And it shows because you get a lot of exclusive listings, you know what I mean? And that takes, for someone to just give you a $5 million listing, you know what I mean? It takes trust. It takes a lot of relationship building. And that's really the basis of your business. And it's showing.
Yeah, and honesty and integrity. When I started this business, I wanted to build a brand that was around honesty and integrity and do the right thing by the client from the start, because I wasn't in it for, to make a short or a quick dollar. I was in it for the relationship. And that's why it probably took a little bit longer than I would have liked. But, that's the way the business goes. You build the quality relationship ahead of time, and then they come to you and, they can come to you for advice about different matters. And then over time that translates into business, so it wasn't just going after the quick dollar.
And I think that's like advice for any agent that's trying to get in this business. It's a lot of people are like, I want to go into real estate because I want to make a shit ton of money, but it's like they don't understand that it's the relationships. You know what I mean? It's like I always say, I'm on the phone constantly because if I got free time, I'm just calling people up to say what's up, just touch base with them. You know what I mean? Do you need help? It's not even about selling your real estate. It's like, do you need an attorney? Do you need, what's going on in your life? And I think that's the beauty of our business too, is that we get to work with people that we like. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's definitely one of the best parts.
Well, yeah. If you're a shithead, then I don't really want to work with you. You know what I mean? I think it truly is the basis of creating a good business. It's like just solidify good relationships with your clients, and they're going to give you their business. They're going to refer you business. And man. Exactly. And I think you're doing a great job of doing that.
Appreciate it.
And just on that note, it's like what you give, you receive, and if you give that honest and integrous energy and obviously service that you do give, it's you're going to get that back tenfold. And the people that you work with, I'm sure they're very respectful and
absolutely. And when you go into it with the intention of delivering value, a lot of people say value is the most important thing, and it really is. Most of my calls now to a lot of clients is like, what can I do to help you? It's not, oh, I want this or I want that. It's like, where can I help you? What part of your business do you need someone to help you? And you'd be amazed. Sometimes it's, I just need a referral for a contractor, or I want to get connected with this building owner across the street because I've been eyeing this piece up for a long time. It could be a multitude of different things, but when you come in with the intention to just help the person, it can go a very long way.
Yeah. Well said. And it really can be that simple. There's no need to complicate this business. But Sam, I'm genuinely curious, and I know the audience is too. What got you to where you are today? Let's take it from the top pretty much, and just where you grew up. where you went to high school, things like that. And then of course your transition into real estate.
Yeah. So I started in real estate when I was 20 years old. Before that, the first half of my life, I lived in Virginia Beach up until
I did not know that.
7th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you down there for?
Up until about 7th grade. And then I moved here. My family has an Italian restaurant in the suburbs in Ben Salem. It's called La Cena. And when I moved here, my intention was to work in the restaurant, learn the restaurant business. And so I started there in high school. And I knew that that's not the career I wanted, but it was
a tough business.
It's a tough business.
It's a tough business.
Just
it's
to
a
add,
tough business, yeah.
I think we talked about this. My family's in the restaurant business too.
Yeah.
So
we all worked in restaurants.
Yeah.
And a lot of realtors did, because
Definitely.
you learn like the most important skills: how to talk to people, how to be in a good mood when you're not in a good mood, how to build relationships with the customers as they come back and they become repeat customers. So I learned a lot of valuable skills, but at the time I was also trading stocks. When I was 18, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. and I would read SEC filings, and I would learn which companies I wanted to invest in, and I would take all my money I earned and I'd go invest in different small cap companies. And I learned what makes a good business run, and I learned a lot about the business side of things. And I was making good money, but I was losing a lot of money. So I wanted a career that was a little bit more stable, and I knew I wanted to be in something that was investment based. So I got into, everything led me to real estate. So I figured, like, how do I get into this real estate game? And someone that I worked with a long time ago said, why don't you become a realtor? And at the time I was 20 and I didn't want to be a realtor. I was like, I just want to buy properties. That's all I want to do. And he said, if you become a realtor, you're going to learn the business and you'll learn a lot of the bigger players. And I did that. And, first year I didn't make anything. I bought a property for myself, but I didn't sell anything. Second year, I made a little bit, but not too much. It really was like the fourth year that it started to pick up. So I was probably 24 or so.
Okay. What were those first few years like? I mean, just obviously not doing a lot of transactions, but, like you said, kind of slow building that trust with clients. Like, did you still feel momentum even though you weren't getting sales?
I did, because, a lot of it, it's like you got to have the belief in yourself, because, when you're not making anything, and, at the time I had a triplex that I owned. I was 20 and I had an eviction. I had a tenant that wasn't paying. I could barely afford my mortgage, and I was working full time. And I was like, how am I going to figure this out? But, it all worked out. But, there's just, you have to learn from your mistakes as you go and make sure you don't repeat them. So
I think that's a big thing too. And that goes across the board for a lot of businesses. It's like having that perseverance. Because especially in our business, it takes a while to build that book. Like you said, it was like 3 years you weren't making any money, and then it takes off. It might be 1 year and then it takes off.
Yeah.
It depends on how broad your network is, but it's like, it's a game of mental toughness.
Yeah. And
getting
belief in
shot
yourself.
down and believing in yourself.
Even when things aren't working out.
Exactly.
That's the hard part. And you have to pay your bills. That's probably where most people give up.
Exactly.
And I knew that if I could just get past that point, it would just be all greatness from there.
Yeah, I heard this quote: "A winner is a loser who just never gave up." So I think there's a lot of times where, you get that one loss and then you just say, "Oh, I'm a loser," and all I've done is lose, and I failed at this, so I'm just gonna fail. And truly, that's like 90, maybe 85% of people that you talk to in today's society.
Yeah.
But those winners are the 15%, 10% that were just like, no, this isn't the story. This isn't the way it's supposed to be written. I'm going to rewrite it my way, and become the champion, become the hero of your own story.
You can't be afraid to fail.
No.
No.
And how many times how many times in the beginning do you fake it till you make it? It's like, there was a lot of times where I could sell this. Yeah, I've done this before.
Yeah.
Get the listing and then be like, shit, like
What
I need
do I
to
do
talk
next?
to somebody that can help me out with this.
Yeah, but that's the best part, because then, it forced me to go, how do I sell this? Then it forced me to go into the phone book and cold call everybody that owned a similar property. Then I started building relationships with those people, and then but that's the business is, building the relationships for the long term, and, providing value and being the most knowledgeable. And for me, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. No, it's I love that start, and it's relatable, I think, to a lot of people, agents especially watching, but in general business owners, like the first 2-3 years of any business, restaurant business, accounting business, lawyer firm, like any kind of business, those first 2-3 years are tough. So for those of you, listening, this is a guy right here who's absolutely killing it in the game, silent killer. So to hear that you had a similar start to maybe 90% of people is kind of a relief for me personally, because I was in a similar position, and to see where you're at, it's like I know that I'm in the right environment with the right people, kind of all pushing in the right direction, fighting through those mental challenges that we face every day and the rejection that we face every day. So let me ask you, where's your business now? I know you said 2 years ago it kind of clicked into the commercial. Have you sold residential, or is it just strictly commercial at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really focusing now on clients that have a larger portfolio. I'll still sell residential, but the focus is on larger buildings where typically commercial buildings, but there's a lot of 2 units, 3 units, and 4 units where maybe somebody has 10 of them and they want to start offloading them one at a time or as a package. So I mean, I still do sell some residential, but that's not as much the focus now.
Right.
Just because you do one larger commercial deal and that's the equivalent in time and energy as a small, like 10 smaller deals. So,
right.
It's just a different game, and numbers are a lot more important. And that's kind of what I'm focused on.
Yeah. What are you seeing right now in the market? Like, why the people that you're speaking to, why are they selling?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say it's a multitude of different factors, but one of them is, I'll give you an example for some of the larger buildings. Like I have a larger building for sale now. It's an industrial building. The seller doesn't have to sell it, but he's also in tandem with this. He's building a 93 unit project in Northern Liberties right now. So he wants the cash for that building. So it's just really like, where can I move my cash to give me the biggest return? And that's something I try to, when I speak to a seller from the start, I try to get an understanding of like their financial situation, what their goals are, what their plans are, and then trying to assess it as almost, I feel like as in commercial, you're almost like a financial advisor, and you're helping them figure out where the best return is for their money. And in this case, the seller has a better return on the new construction apartment building he's building rather than keeping it in, an industrial building, which is cash flowing, and it's a nice investment, but it's just he's going to get a bigger return somewhere else. So understanding the ins and outs of that is really important when you're having serious conversations with them about, if we have an offer, if this makes sense, if the timelines make sense, because ultimately a lot of these guys are moving money from one place to another. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was going to ask one small question. Like people don't, the one thing I'm taking away from what you're saying is that you look at the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's never like, I see this one industrial piece you own. You want to know if they're building something else over there. You want to know if they have another property over there. How do you connect with these landowners to allow them to open up to you at such a personal level and tell you the rest of their stuff? Like what are some of the questions you ask? What are some of the things you do?
That's a great question. I read a book. I think it was Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. It was probably the best book I ever read. And when you have your guard down and you can ask questions, real questions, not just, would you sell, or, serious questions about themselves, then they start to build trust. And, but you have to ask questions, not questions that where you'll get answers for a response, but questions where you'll actually understand the person. Because we're all human beings and we're all going through different things. So when you can truly understand a seller and what their goals are and ask the right questions to get to those goals, then you can better assess the situation. So, it's really just about asking the right questions from the start, not sounding like a salesperson, because when I call a lot of these sellers, I call them like I had spoken to them 10 times. And you can tell by your tonality, you can tell by your actual curiosity, like being genuinely curious, not just curious because you want a listing or you want to, again, what's their situation and what are their goals? And when you can get to the bottom of that with the right questions, everything is on the table and you can truly help the person. But you can't help the person if you don't know what their goals and intentions are and you're just trying to sell a building.
Just one thing I want to note from what you're saying help the person.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about selling the person.
No.
On any kind of, because what do you sell really? You sell your services, you sell your consultation services. So I just love that. And anyone listening thinking that you need to be salesy. You need to be a business owner. You cannot come at it as a salesman. You got to come at it as a business owner. Let me see if our businesses can co-create some money and time together. And if they can't, hey, exactly. I'm still here if you need me.
And I say that all the time. I talk to somebody probably close to every day that has a building they want to sell. And I tell them, like in this market, there are certain sellers where I tell them, I don't think it's a good time for you to sell. You should rent it. If I were in your position, I'd rent it. But again, that depends on their situation. If they can use that money for a better investment, then maybe it is a good time to sell. But if they just want to sell for the sake of selling and they want to get a check and they don't need to get the check, maybe wait a year. It depends on the situation, but it's not, everyone's situation is different. And that's why asking the right questions are important, because what the reason I may sell a building could be very, very different from the reason someone else sells a building. And most agents, I feel like they just come at it from, oh, I want to sell this building, rather than like, oh, why do you even want to sell it in the first place?
Yeah. And people want options. They want options.
Exactly.
They want options, and that's what we bring them.
Exactly.
They want options. They want to understand, like, if I do this, this would be the outcome. If I do this, give me some insight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you alluded to something before that I think what we're seeing in this market right now is it's monetary tightening. It's like people could spread their cash out to a lot more spec projects.
Yeah.
And now it's like they physically can't do it. You need way more capital to get things in motion. And now people have to make, tougher decisions. A lot of these people have equity in their projects. They have equity in their buildings, and they,
debt equity,
exactly.
And that's a huge thing that I'm seeing right now is a lot of these building owners have a ton of debt equity in their building. So for instance, I have a seller that I'm working with right now. She has probably close to $4 million in debt equity. And she's like, I own this free and clear. And I asked her, well, what would you do with the money when you sold it? Like, why would you even sell it? It's a great piece. Oh, well, I'm thinking I could get a better return in a shopping center with this money, with quality tenants. That's a good option to explore. So we've understood now that, like, hey, this is what her goals and intentions are. This could be a better investment somewhere else for you, even though you do have a great piece of real estate. So understanding all that stuff is really the most important part, I feel like.
And some of these people I'm talking to, their assets have appreciated to a certain amount.
Yeah.
It's basically leveling off right now. You take that cash in the just straight savings account, you're making 5%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't making you any money,
right,
if you're not depreciating it at this point.
Right.
If you've owned it for 30 plus years, do something with it.
I agree.
Yeah, and also what I'm hearing you say is like a lot of people want to consolidate at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe selling 3 smaller buildings and putting them into one larger multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we worked on something with a portfolio seller. Was it a year and a half ago? I don't remember his name. We met him at La Colombe.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that conversation we had with that gentleman? Had about, was it maybe 30 properties between multifamilies and singles? And his goal, after talking to him, which I think you did such a great job in that coffee meeting of understanding what his goal was and why he was selling that portfolio. So that way, whether we sold that portfolio or not, we knew he was looking for something to consolidate and upgrade into. Sure. So for a lot of people that maybe they don't want to sell, but they're seeing opportunity right now with a lot of people kind of backing out where it's like, hey, I can actually upgrade with little competition. And a guy like you, a guy like Nick, a guy like myself, consulting them and giving them all the options. Because they could say like, oh, I want to invest in a shopping center. And then you run some numbers and you're like, hey, actually, maybe shopping center is not the right route. This is something this is something else you can consider at least.
Exactly.
How many times have you had that happen where someone will give you their goals and give you their dreams of why they're selling this to do that, and you're pretty much advising that isn't the right move, and then maybe pointing them in another direction that they didn't realize?
Yeah, a lot of times, and again, it's like the questions that you ask. So depending on the person or the seller, maybe the seller is a contractor and they can buy a building and add value to it, and they can do the work for a lot cheaper than someone else can. Then maybe it's not a good option for them to buy something that's already stabilized and turnkey and ready to go. Maybe it's a better option for them to, build something ground up. It really depends on the situation, but just understanding the person's background and what their strengths are and what they own already, and what their management is like. If they have in-house property management and they're trained properly, and they could just gobble up buildings, and it's just going to be managed perfectly from the start. Maybe you're better off just getting something that's already stabilized, and but for someone that's a GC, which a lot of sellers are general contractors, and for them it makes more sense to just take all this money, get a construction loan, buy something twice as big, add value, and then refinance out of that.
I like what you said about playing to their strengths.
Right.
Sometimes people try to dabble in this very wide world of real estate because there's so many ways to make money, and they'll try to go into something they've never done before. And I really think why would you do that? Especially if it's a tight market and you don't have that kind of capital to be messing around. It's like, hey, play to your strengths, play to your experiences.
Yeah, and also like what's depending on their goals. If they want to just amass a huge portfolio of rental properties, what's scalable, and what learning the basics of business, and understand what's scalable. Like if you want to build a huge portfolio and you have a ton of money, maybe it's not good for you to go buy 100 single families because the management's going to be a little bit tougher, and maybe it's better to just buy one big building. And it's a lot more scalable. There's one closing versus 100 closings, or whatever the case may be. Understanding a business model that works for their goals.
No, I love that. Yeah.
What are you seeing? Because obviously, like a lot of investors recently have talked about, and we see it all the time. It's like, unfortunately for the city, there's been a lot of, I don't want to invest in the city anymore. And that's really indicative of, I hate to say it, the city is its own worst enemy. L&I kind of dealing with the city. It's just a pain in the ass, and hopefully our new mayor can help that out. I know she has an initiative for that. But the people that you're seeing when you're getting these listings, these warehouse listings, industrial listings, larger listings, who are these buyers that, these people that are looking to invest millions of dollars in the city? Where are they coming from? Like, what's the profile?
It's all different people of all different backgrounds doing all different things. Like I have one that's supposed to be closing in a few months. It's a developer out of Washington, D.C. He's going to be building, I believe it's like 32 units, affordable housing. I have another one where he used the warehouse space for he wanted to expand his commercial moving business, and this was located perfectly. I sold another warehouse in West Philly. He had warehouses across the East Coast, and he was shipping food, and this was the last piece of the puzzle for him. So he found a spot that was close to major highways, and it just sat perfectly, and that would make his business, that would maybe double or triple the revenue of his business because of the location and the use for it. So a lot of either developers or end users that have businesses, and during COVID we saw a lot of people expanding their business. There are a lot of people that their businesses failed, and then there are a lot of people that just doubled down and they expanded their business. So I knew I could see that trend coming, and that's why I got into industrial in the first place, because I like to study like the economy and what's working, what's not working, and we've just seen a huge influx of industrial buyers in our market, and understanding what they want the use for is important, because then you can target markets to those kind of people.
Yeah, if I'm hearing you right, it's just a lot of people that are still growing. Whether it's a developer, whether it's a business owner, they're still growing their business, or like you said, finding that perfect piece to kind of at least wrap up what they are doing growth-wise. Yeah. So I think that's super important. And people that are growing right now, what are some of the similar like personality traits, I guess, that you're seeing within these business owners? Are they very kind of like get up and go, or are they like laid back, just drivers who know what they want, and if they can get it, great. If not, no worries. Or are they really hungry for these pieces right now? What are you seeing?
Say that again.
Like, are these buyers, these people that are growing, are they really, you can feel that they're growing and you feel the urge and the demand in them? Or is it sometimes just like, if you can find it for me, great. But if not, no worries.
Yeah, a combination of both. I mean, sometimes, when I like certain buildings over others, like proximity to highways. Like right now, everybody wants warehouse space, industrial space that's close to 95, because, if they're shipping things and they need to move things from one place to another, it's convenient to be close to 95. So targeting certain buildings that I see a lot of potential buyers asking for, and I just kind of work backwards. I had so many people come up to me, I need a warehouse. I didn't initially want to get into the warehouse space, but it just worked based on what, a lot of my clients were moving up from residential single family homes to now they want to get into industrial because that's the hot commodity right now.
Yeah.
Something that you touched on, I think we should talk about because you said that one gentleman bought something to do lower income, like affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm talking to people right now, and I think they just upped the payment per. They have some type of equation for it, but it's crazy.
In
I mean,
October,
and then you're getting obviously government money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you can pick and choose, I guess, location. I'm not too privy to like how it works, but
I think
you could pick some locations that might not be, you're looking at market rents. It might not pay off. It might not make the deal work. But now if you can go, affordable and get government money, shit, boom, there it goes. And the numbers work.
The rents, not only do the rents work, but there are a lot of, like this gentleman was telling me, there's this program that's going to be financing the construction of this. They're able to get a much lower interest rate on the construction loan. So on top of his ability to get higher rents from the affordable housing,
cheaper money.
He's getting cheaper money, so it makes, and a lot of deals don't work right now because of rates. So when you can get creative, that's where there's a lot of opportunity.
And I know there's certain, like I've talked to other developers, there's certain states, I think like Rhode Island's one, like they have an allotment of money where they basically will just pay the GC to build the housing for them.
Yeah.
Like they're not even taking ownership. They're just getting basically, GC'd out fees to build these. And again, it's like when something doesn't work, what is working? And right now that's kind of like, I have spoken to some developers and it's working for them.
And another really hot sector in industrial is like artist spaces. That's becoming really popular. 400 to 600 square foot spaces broken up amongst, a lot of these larger buildings that are multiple stories. When you can break them up into artist spaces and, lease to recording studios and different types of artists, there's a pretty big demand for that as well. You just have to be very particular about what area you're in because, sometimes you don't want to be in an area where there's too many artist spaces, but that's becoming a pretty hot trend.
Now, we were kind of touching on the battery and that adaptive reuse project. How long have you been keeping an eye on that, Sam?
Honestly, the past 6 months. I mean, it's just seeing what's going on over there is just awesome. I mean, I feel like Nick was saying, Delaware Ave has just kind of been not a no man's land, but it hasn't been developed anywhere near as much as what's going on now. So just driving by and seeing it all the time, I looked into it and I'm like, wow, they're actually putting a lot of cool things here. And I don't know, it's probably one of the project that I'm most excited for.
Yeah. I personally would agree too, seeing all those different spaces come into one and being like probably the first, I wouldn't say the first big one because like we talked about, the Riverwalk has done that where they put the Giant there, but like putting a Fiddler Club gym down there. And if you guys don't know about the Fiddler Club, it's pretty cool. I don't know exactly how I describe it, but definitely a community of people that are in the business space in Philadelphia. A lot of realtors and real estate companies are in that space, but any entrepreneur is really welcome there. But they have full amenities. It's like you pay a certain fee per month and you have all access to this amazing club. So if they can incorporate that into the rents and get higher rents and have that included in something, it's just exciting to see. That's probably one of the first bigger ones that we've seen. So, definitely going to keep an eye on that. And we talked about a few things last week, but this is the first of its kind, I think, with the old power plant that they're going to transform into just overall lifestyle wellness facility, which is pretty cool. Have you seen anything like that before in your experience?
Well, I mean, in Philadelphia or
probably anywhere. I was gonna say,
I mean, like take for instance the rail park. They had similar thing in New York, but like the High Line. The High Line in New York. What is it called here?
The L.
Yeah, they redid it, so it's like a nice walking park. It's cool when they take like those old aspects, redo them. People love that. Take for instance our office. Our office is a an old rope factory that was redone. You
Which
get
is
these
cool.
like sick beams, you know what I mean? You get a lot of the old aesthetic.
I didn't know it was a rope factory.
This was a rope factory. It says it on the outside of the building.
The Edward Corner, Edward Corner Rope Factory. Yeah,
Oh, I see the Edward Corner. I didn't notice the rope factory part.
That actually, you know, that's a. We could go into it a little bit. I would say like the thing I love the most about like selling industrial in Philadelphia is like
history.
The history of it.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke about this in the last one, but it's like, you know, Philly was a textile city. You know, it was like World War II. We were producing like leather, shoe polish, you know, ropes, things of that nature. Things that unfortunately after NAFTA, just, you know, basically everything dried up. But to like walk into some of these buildings and still meet somebody, like I'm selling this one smaller kind of like double wide like garage warehouse with some space on the side of it, and it's owned by some guy, older gentleman. His wife's kind of like forcing him into retirement. That's where I'm seeing a lot of opportunities. The guys that are retiring, they have these buildings, and they're like, oh, I'm done. But this guy was a machinist, and he's like goes through it. You got these like fucking old machines in there, and I always like to like talk again. Like,
it's cool stuff.
Yeah, I genuinely, I'm like, what were you doing with these?
Exactly.
And he was going into like what he was making, all these like trinkets and things like that, that he would sell for like bar stools and restaurants, like things like, you know, washers and stuff like that. As he's talking to me though, I'm looking at him and he's missing 3 fingers on one hand. Of course, you know, inherent risk of being a machinist probably got him lopped off. But yeah, you know, this guy was like in the Vietnam War, just a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't even care about selling your real estate. I just want to kind of talk to you. But I can't tell you how many like buildings I walk through, and it's like, this, you know, this used to be for, you know, such and such, and it's got some old school machine that's just like sitting there in the back in the corner. That's like 4,000 pounds. Yeah. That they're like, we just left it there because it was more money to like take out. You know what I mean?
They're expensive to remove.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's cool. You know, it's funny that you say rope factory because I just toured a building, and the seller said that he claimed that it was the first rope factory in the United States. And I looked into it. I think it is one of the oldest rope manufacturers in Philly.
Wow.
I don't know about the United States, but still, it's pretty crazy. 4th generation. Yeah. You know, and there's just so much like history to it. The city's got so much history. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like history, it invokes a lot of emotion in people, right? Especially 4 generations of, you know, business owners in that family that pass it on. So going back to like what we said earlier about just connecting with people on that history, on that emotion, it'll just allow them to open up. And I think selling the real estate is just a byproduct of really good communication. Like it's not the main focus or the main goal, it's just a really healthy byproduct that, you know, kind of fuels our businesses and allows us to keep connecting.
I agree.
Yeah. And
sometimes I think like for July 4th, you know, like the country was founded here. Yeah. Wouldn't you think that there would be like the biggest party in our whole country right in Philadelphia?
It's down the Jersey Shore.
I'm just like anybody out there in government, like, can we just throw a massive party and have Philly?
I think they had that one. What's it called? Is it every July?
I mean, they have something.
What's that festival that it has 1 million people? It just got shut down this year. It's on the Parkway. It's the biggest free public.
It wasn't free.
It's not MIA, is it?
No, it's
the Jay-Z started it.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I
went to the
all
first
up and
one
down the Parkway.
Yeah. What was it called?
But they stopped doing that, I think, this last year.
It wasn't July 4th. It was Memorial Day.
Was it Memorial Day?
Yeah. Yeah, they stopped. They didn't last year. I think they didn't sell enough tickets.
Really?
I think that's why the freedom. What is it?
It's on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, free studded concert featuring.
No. Go Jay-Z. Go Jay-Z. Jay-Z. Ben Franklin Parkway. Jay-Z. Ben Franklin.
And Wawa
Parkway.
sponsors it.
Yeah, Franklin Parkway Music Festival. Made in America.
Yeah,
Made in America.
How do we know?
Yeah, how do we not? Yeah. Well,
Well, it's funny because that's in August. It's saying so.
Yeah,
it's like it celebrates
It was typically, I think it was
on the
Memorial-
4th.
Yeah.
It was Memorial. No, it was,
Memorial Day.
But that was the
Memorial.
largest free concert in the United States, I think, for a
It
while.
wasn't free though. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, you had to pay for it.
Yeah, little summary of this. What we're talking about is Benjamin Franklin Parkway, which runs right up to the Art Museum. They'll basically block it all off, and we'll show this B-roll on the screen. I mean, that's a pretty cool picture of what it can be. It is a pretty big party. It looks like the biggest party in America is going on.
Yeah.
You just think like July 4th, like throw a banger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
People
agree.
should be here, and
I agree.
You know,
And if
but
Jay-Z's picking the lineup, I can't imagine it being bad music. You know, that guy is some instances the GOAT in a lot of what he does. So
absolutely.
goats attract goats. I don't know if that's a quote out there yet, but I just made it. But yeah, stuff like that, I agree. It's like the history of the city of Philadelphia is, I'm going to be biased here, but the best in the country. And like we have to celebrate it more than anything.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, just to kind of go back into Sam's business career, any funny stories you want to share with kind of your experience in real estate thus far in the 8 years that you've been crushing it? I mean, any stories that come top of mind?
Funny stories. I don't have too many funny stories, unfortunately. I had one where I sold 3 houses. It's probably 5 years ago.
Mm.
And it was the deals were brought to me off the market. We were getting ready to close. We had a settlement sheet ready, and we went to the house to do a final walkthrough the day of closing. And the gentleman opened the door and said, "What do you want?" And we said, "We're doing our final walkthrough. We have these properties under contract, and we're supposed to be closing at 5:00 today or 4:30." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. This is my house. I have no idea why you'd be here." And we found out that the deals were presented to us, and a seller fraudulently signed all the documents, the agreement of sale.
No way.
And it was 3 houses, and
That's selling real estate in Philadelphia.
and everyone was. Fortunately, my buyer was pretty cool about it. But
How was his reaction? Initial
he was
reaction?
pretty pissed, and then he was like, "Listen, I know it wasn't your fault, but I mean, the guy signed an agreement of sale, and it wasn't his property, and this kind of stuff happens."
And your guy obviously didn't sign yet because that was the walkthrough before
That was
settlement.
the walkthrough before settlement. He was ready. Like, he had his check in hand. He was ready, and obviously didn't go through.
That's nuts to me. Like, did the title company pick up on any of that?
The title company didn't, and they definitely would have, though, at the settlement table when the seller didn't show up.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Especially with, that's why I like being in contact directly with the sellers or having a trusted broker involved, because in this scenario, there wasn't another broker involved, and it was just an off-market deal. It was a wholesaler, and you just have to be very, very cautious.
Wholesalers are so tricky.
Yeah, especially with the estate deals.
Yeah.
The estate deals where someone is the administrator, and then there could be somebody out there
Exactly.
that they didn't get served properly, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden this person's buying the property, and they have title insurance, but they might be investing a shit ton of time and money into it, and they're like,
Right.
we'll give you back what you bought for the paid for the property.
Yeah.
But it was like, well, that whole upside that you were thinking about, that's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
And
really.
it's a problem. I mean, there's been a couple that I've sold that has happened, unfortunately. It's like, of course, I didn't have any knowledge of that. You know what I mean? The title company's doing their job to say it's free and clear.
That's why a good title company is important.
It is very important.
We could
I
shout
got
out
a
a
funny
lot.
story about Sam, actually.
Yeah.
Funny
Oh,
enough.
let's hear it.
This is when I realized that I was old.
What's
Older.
your favorite story?
His favorite
Tale as
story.
old as time. What?
Yeah. So Sam's obviously younger than me, and I still remember this one time going out, and it was just pre-COVID. It was like during Christmas. There's some house party or something like that. Walk in the door, and Sam's in there with, I think it was Alex, the framer.
Uh-huh.
And Sam's like, "Oh shit, the old head's in
Oh,
the house."
shit.
And I was like, "Damn, man, I'm the old guy now." Because I remember when I first got into real estate, I was the young guy.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I guess
I'm going through that phase now, too.
Now
I'm
you're-
not the youngest anymore.
Nah, you're not the youngest anymore.
No.
Now I walk in and call Sam old.
Yeah.
Oh, Sam, the old head.
That's how it works.
Yeah, time flies in this business. It's like minutes become seconds,
so fast.
days become minutes, weeks become days. It feels like, and you just have to stay on top of your shit as best as you can. Kind of like last note here, finals. Like, how do you stay on top of your shit every day? How do you, what do you attest to kind of your business right now being at the top of its game?
Honestly, it's just it's really doing the things you don't want to do when you have to do them, and a lot of that is getting yourself in a mindset of like, where it needs to be. So for me, for probably 4 years now, I've worked out at least 4 times a week. I mean, I'm not going crazy hard in the gym, but I'm consistently working out.
Right.
For me, running was a big part of it. I would run. I was at a point for almost 2 years where I would run close to maybe 7 or 8 miles a week for 2 years.
Wow.
And not even because I liked running. I absolutely hated running, and I still hate running. But it puts me in a state where I force myself to do something I don't like. And, it gives me clarity, and it allows me to like push and do things that I don't want to do, but I know I need to do it. So like those kind of things have helped me a lot. And, trying to wake up I like to sleep late. So for me, waking up before 8 a.m., I try to wake up around 7 every day. So waking up on time, getting the exercise in every day, and just, consistently setting goals for myself. I want to speak to 3 or 4 sellers every day that really want to sell, and I can help them, and just consistent follow-up. So for me, it's just how many good conversations can I have a day with sellers that I want to work with, that I can, relate to and help, and just do that over and over and over and over and over again until, I've built a database of people that are going to transact. It could be now, it could be in 2 years, it could be in 4 years, but just doing that same thing over and over again.
There's no magic bullet,
No, not at all.
I think the key word is consistency.
Yeah.
It's consistency.
And if I'm hearing you right, it's like get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So just pushing yourself past your own boundaries to allow yourself to really grow.
And then you get to a point where like you're uncomfortable being comfortable.
Right.
So like, I'm uncomfortable being comfortable. I'm at the worst spots mentally when I'm not pushing myself to the place that because I know what my potential is, and when I'm not trying to go towards that potential, that's when I'm not comfortable. Like when I'm just relaxing. For me, that's not comfortable.
Wow. That's the first I've heard that. I like that a lot. You always hear the first thing I said, but to be uncomfortable being comfortable.
Yeah.
That might be the real secret to growth. Yeah. And I think that's what we're all chasing here, because at the end of the day, success is great, but as soon as you get that success, you're always going to ask that question, what's next? But if you're constantly growing, you're consistently growing, that question becomes a little less daunting, right? You're like, all right, what's next? Let's push it. Let's keep going. Let's keep pushing.
That's where the fun is, man.
Absolutely. And this episode's been a blast. I know we could talk for probably days. We should probably book a camping trip or a trip down the shore or something.
Let's do it.
Stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll do a little pod in the woods or something. But no, dude, Sam, thank you for just taking the time, man. It's so much fun picking your brain.
Yeah, man. This was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, dude.
Listen, if you like what you listen to, like and subscribe. We'd like to have more of you listen to us. So peace out, and have a great day.
Have a great day. Cheers.